Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex-partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brook Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now.
Hey everybody, it's Brook Olson and Charlie Jewett here with another episode of the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast. This is going to be episode 27, Stuck in the Cycle. Why do I continue to think he or she is going to change? And this is a fairly common thing that we come across, when dealing with these types of people that we've been talking about here. Your hope that they will change, our hope that our exes were going to change in the past. And before we jump into it, Brooke, the numbers are up. People are listening. People are telling their friends. You're getting phone calls and emails. And, you're in multiple time zones at this point, right? So for a while there, more of it was probably in California where you and I both live, but you just added something on Mondays to take care of people in the different time zones. Is that right?
Yes, we did. We added another class on Mondays, so we can take care of people in the Central and Eastern time zones. And
perfect. That'll make it easier for them because it's after work or after dinner or whatever's the most convenient. Right?
We don't want them up at midnight listening to my noises. So we're starting one on Mondays at 3:30 p.m. and it starts on Monday, March 18th.
Awesome. Well, that's good. As many of you as can participate in that. Jump in there and get more time with Brooke. I've been through these classes. They're absolutely awesome. Might even be there this week, Brooke. Might come in for a special appearance, which is really for me. I need a dose of you.
Love to see you come in.
Let's get into this. We talked about gaslighting last week. This is going to be a little bit different, you said, right? But we're still sort of in this cycle with the narcissists and controllers, right?
Right. This is not quite a part two, but it has a lot of the same components to it. So we can ease into this and start to talk a little bit more about why we get stuck in this stuff.
Yeah, why do we get stuck in it? It would seem like there's other things. You stick your hand in the fire and it hurts and you pull it back immediately. You get electrocuted, you pull back. Here we get hurt and say, "Thank you, ma'am. May I please have another?" What's that all about?
A little bit. It's like, there's this intermittent reinforcement that is kind of a strong narcissistic technique. I mean, they've kind of got it mastered. And it's like we were talking last week, they'll give you just enough to keep you engaged. So they'll give you some attaboys, attagirls, or they'll give you just a little bit of something that makes you think that they're going to do it right, or they're going to kind of stop doing what they've been doing in terms of their manipulation or their torture. And you start to lean back in and things go well for a little bit. And then all of a sudden it turns back on and we're back in it. So we keep kind of buying into this type of manipulation. Right. And it's tricky stuff because so many people want it to be a particular way. They think that, if I do it just right or I step into here, they're going to change. And, when we're in this area of high conflict personalities, coming to the conclusion that they aren't going to shift is really a hard one, because there's this strong sense in all of us that all of us can do this differently, and that we just need to find a different way to do it. And we keep trying to find that sweet spot where they're going to engage in this co-parenting operation with us, and they'll do it for a little bit and then they don't.
Yeah. That's so much harder than if somebody just does something constantly. Like when I talk about stick your hand in fire, it's because it always hurts. It's not like sometimes it feels amazing. It gives you this unspeakable pleasures. It's very consistent. But with these men and women, I mean, some of them, and maybe all of them, you can comment, but for some of them, it's just a survival mechanism, right? They're not even planning it out. It's just how they move through the world as they sort of deal with the circumstances. They kind of just do it subconsciously, right?
Yes, and they found a way that this helps them get what they want. It helps them control that other individual, and it's really quite effective.
That's what it's reminding me of. We mentioned on the parenting episode about yelling. And that's one of the problems with yelling, is that it does something. It works. It stops the situation, or it stops the behavior, or whatever. And there's a trick in there, because it's not a great tool, but it gives a it gives some sort of result that people can go back to. Well, these guys have done that same kind of a thing with their manipulation and control, right? Is they're not probably even thinking about healthy or unhealthy, but even if there's unhealthy side effects, it's getting them what they want.
Yeah, and it's either conscious or unconscious, and either way, it really doesn't matter. To bring that consciousness to them that they're doing it, they're not going to hear that. They're steeped in that belief that this is, they don't do it, or this is normal, or there's this component of success that they have with it. And if they are aware of it, they're using it overtly. They're really looking at yeah, this is working really good. I can keep this person spun up.
I say all the time on my other podcast, which is a retirement planning show, I say it doesn't matter if your advisor is hurting you through ignorance or immorality. We just got to fix it, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's just, are they doing it on purpose, or are they being manipulative and using it as a tool? It doesn't matter. You don't need to have it in your life. We got to get you out of it.
Right. And we've got to really stop and understand here a little bit too, that manipulation, that's everywhere. We all manipulate our environment in some way, shape, or form. We manipulate our relationships in some way, shape, or form. And if we can be aware of that manipulation, we can dial it back, and we can become more relational and more real in those experiences, because we are filtering, we're looking at the impact, we're trying to be different in that. But and that's a healthy perspective of that, because we're trying to get people to do what we want them to do. We manipulate our kids by how we engage with them to some degree, and some of that manipulation is really healthy because we're trying to lead them in a direction. And that's consciousness. I'm looking at that. I'm doing that. This is something that I want to teach them. This is a place where I want them to learn. And there's a manipulation in that conversation of moving them in that direction. And then there's the unhealthy manipulation, the covert manipulation of getting down and using techniques that move people in the way that we want them to do something for us, that is a one-way street of give me, and make this happen for me, where there isn't that mutuality back and forth, and there isn't health in the manipulation.
You went exactly where I was hoping you'd go. I was formulating my question, because manipulation sounds like a negative term, and that's usually how we're using it. But it sounds like there's healthy manipulation and there's unhealthy manipulation, or you could say there's selfish. And the definition of selfish that I liked was, doing something that was good for you and harmful for others. It's just doing stuff that's good for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But in some ways, it could be replaced with other words, like impacting people or leadership even, right? Hitler was Hitler moved people, right? Got them excited, used his gifts to rally, but then had them doing things that were selfish and hurtful to others, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite of exaggeration. That's downgrading it quite a bit. What he did was awful. And then there's leadership, even just in the form of parenting, right? So in some ways, manipulation, just life itself, is like ordering your day to try to accomplish your goals. So if your goals are good, then that's probably healthy. If your goals are not, then you're probably using some sort of unhealthy manipulation. And that's what we're talking about, is the people that, because of sickness, are manipulating our listeners and the kids, right? How do you get unstuck from that? I mean, the cycle's not going to be broken because the other person's changing. That's not our hope, right?
The cycle is going to get broken when we get aware of our manipulation and their manipulation. Relationally, we try to use covert manipulation to get our partners to do things differently, or to hurt our partners in a particular way, where we withdraw our love, or we withdraw our presence to try to get them to wake up to something that we did, or that they did. And we don't tell them what it was, and we let them brew in it. And then, we come back around and we beat them with that, and they don't even know what they're being beat about. And, that's a manipulation to try to get them to come in and submit to us in some way, right? And we do that all of the time. And this is kind of that same kind of manipulation that we're talking about that's unhealthy. But then there's this other piece of, oh, hell, I'm doing that. I don't want to hurt this person that I love. And I've done something, and I'm not telling them what they've done. So I'm going to dial back, and I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call them, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I got some stuff going on here. I got pinged, and this isn't on you. This is on me. So I just want you to know that I'm aware that I'm activated, and I want you to know that there's nothing going on between the two of us. And then just taking that and owning it, and that's coming into some kind of a healthy awareness of what we do, right?
Yeah. So if we own our part,
And I want to take just a little more piece to that, because here's the covert intermittent reinforcement that I'm talking about. This becomes, kind of that snake charmer kind of a thing where I do both, where, I'll be this really engaged and remorseful and person that is coming in and doing that, and then I'll come back and I'll do the other end, and I'll smack them hard, and I'll use this back and forth to try to keep them off balance, and they keep looking for that good piece as being the constant piece, and there's so much back and forth in that they can't land in it.
yeah, trying to get that giant light off my shoulder. You see, that's difficult when somebody's one way a lot of the time and you really love it, and then some of the time they're a way that you can't take. Like I've said before, it doesn't take very much cyanide to ruin a great glass of water.
Right.
It is hard, but these people, the kind of people we're talking about, the difficult X, that's going to be one of the characteristics of the intermittent reinforcements, right? They're not going to be constantly on, being a booger the whole time. They're going to stop at times, and then you're going to go, wait, maybe they're changing, or maybe it isn't that bad, or at least what people will forgive people of is incredible. Some of the scandals that go on in public, and then those people come back 2 years later, 3 years later, and it's just amazing what people will forgive. And that happens on this micro level too, right? You kind of forget what the person did 3 weeks ago because they're acting fairly neutral or nice right now.
Right. There's this idea that they're getting better, they're getting conscious, I can trust. No, I can't trust.
And how does languaging play into that? Are they using language differently, or?
Well, they're softening their language. They're being more relational. They're being manipulative in that kindness or that engagement or that place where they're showing you that they're capable of doing it right, and or doing it in a relational way where you can work out a problem and stuff, and you might be able to do that once or twice, and then bang, it comes back around. So the languaging it isn't this harsh, you're wrong, you're crazy, you're stupid, you're whatever that harsh languaging is. It's much softer, it's much more insidious in its approach.
Yeah. Now, I would think, like all the stuff that you teach us, there's like light at the end of the tunnel, and is part of that to be manipulated, you have to be manipulatable, and looking at ourselves and saying, where do I need to set boundaries, or where do I need to disengage, or where do I need to possibly stand up to the person, even through the courts?
Well, we're really back to that, aren't we? We're back to that setting boundaries and disengaging from it and stepping back, and that's where we can be less manipulatable.
Yeah.
Because we're not engaged in that process. We've pushed that piece back far enough that we don't let it in, because we've come to the point of, I don't trust this. I'm not going to buy in. I'm going to just really disconnect, and I'm going to go in this direction. But getting there is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this isn't just, people don't come into my class and I say, okay, disengage. The process of that is lengthy sometimes, and they'll get a little bit of traction, and then they'll fall back because the snake charmer comes back in.
Yep.
And they start to play the flute, and they're back into their dance. Mm-hmm. It takes them getting hit a few times with this being conscious in their field that they can start to make a shift.
Right. Yeah. I remember hearing a teacher talk about wanting to become the person that received a black belt the fastest in all of history. And he was like flying this master around with him and staying up, until 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. And even if you're trying to do it as fast as humanly possible, it's this incredible effort with a ton of work. So if you're going normal speed learning anything, it's definitely not going to be overnight or one tip from you, disengage. I knew disengage 2 years ago, right? And sometimes have to go, I shouldn't have responded to that text. I should have let that one go, or something. Should have waited 24 hours.
Right.
They're just skills. They're just skills and habits that we're replacing. And I love going back to the basics because that's just what my brain needs. Life seems to try to complicate it, but we are what we think and what we do with our physical bodies. And speaking is one of the things we do with our physical body, right? Throat and everything. So if you can change how you think and change how you act, you can change anything you want to, for the most part. That's changeable, right? So become less manipulatable by changing how you think about the whole thing through your classes and changing how you act by responding differently or not responding and things like that. They're powerful tools.
They are. And there is this humanness, this human quality for most of us of really wanting to do it right.
Yeah.
We want to follow the principles of what good behavior is. We want to follow the principles of what the court orders say. We want to follow the principles of being a good person and following the rules.
Yep.
And when we've got somebody on the other side that is coming just briefly into that, or intermittently reinforcing that, or bullying us in telling us that we're doing it wrong, back to the gaslighting conversation that we had last week, then we get lost because we lose our navigation around what's right and what is the right thing to do in terms of not engaging in it. So if I don't engage, I'm not doing it right on somebody's template.
Right.
And then we can come back to, that's just a belief system, and I don't need to do that. But when we've got this mastery going on, which some of these people have, the narcissist, the malignant narcissist, if they're in this arena, then it's really hard to break that piece, because the trance that they're put into it's hard to see through. It's hard to break that piece. And it takes a lot of reinforcement and time from the people that we've got on our team, our coaches, the people that we're working with, to help us see the reality of what is really in front of us. And if we've got somebody in the team, if we've got an attorney that says you've got to do it this way because this is what's expected, this is the right thing to do, and it adds into this cycle, then we've got a bigger problem. And we've got to be able to look back and say, that isn't the place where I'm going to make that stand. I'm going to step back. I'm going to listen to my coach. I'm going to tell them that this is where we're going to go because this is the way I need to do to break this cycle.
Yeah. And what seems like to me, looking back now, 3 years of experiencing this basically, right? The person's probably not going to change, but there's a cumulative effect to all the accountability and all the tools as you apply more and more of them, that they may not change inside their heart, but they'll be forced to behave. For instance, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, are still texting, not using our family wizard. They're doing email and text, and they're without a coach. They have an attorney, right? Attorney and a judge. We have some episodes on that. Those aren't the people that are trained to know what to do with this type of high conflict relationship, right?
Right.
But if you take a number of the different tools, the cumulative effect could just bring so much light into the person's life, like where they're being seen, like switching to our family wizard instead of texting. Now there's a record of everything that's said, right? You use someone, a friend or a professional, to do pickups and drop-offs if they're manipulating in that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what other states are like or other cities, but we have Department of Child Support Services where they can dock your pay if the person doesn't. They're manipulating. Right. I'm sure there's angry exes that make the person wait for the money just because it makes them feel good, right? Well, that's 3, and then there's the court, and the court can be 4 places. You're already at 4 different places where they weren't in the light before or having to be accountable at all, and now there's a record of everything, right? That cumulative effect can start to change a person, right? Like I always say on my show, I always say the bad guys don't change because they're sad. They change when it hits their wallet. When they start losing clients, they go, uh-oh, I got to do something different. And it's the same kind of thing here. We're not a church asking them for heart change and repentance necessarily. We're more trying to use the authorities and create an environment where it's uncomfortable for them to do the things that are hurtful to you.
Right. And sometimes even that doesn't get their attention and they continue to do what they're doing, and that's to their demise. So there's this gradation of getting them into the light that gets you more traction. And sometimes it gets them to shift, but oftentimes it doesn't get them to shift until they really get hammered with losing time with their kids and sanctions from the court and these other things. And sometimes if this is really somebody that's way down the tracks with the pathology, that doesn't even get their attention. But we're back to this idea, Charlie, of even if we see them making the shifts, not buying into trusting that and coming back into this idea that we can co-parent, we can do these other things together, keeping the parallel parenting model in place is that boundary that is going to keep me out of trouble across the board, because if I stick my foot in that pond, that alligator's still in there.
Right.
And he's going to find that foot at some time, and I'm going to lose the foot. And why would we go in the direction of trusting somebody who has gone out of their way to set false allegations, to try to get us thrown in jail, to take our kids away from us, to ruin our current relationships? Show me one time. You only got to show me that one time.
Yeah.
I'm not going there again. But so many people, because there's been this pattern in their relationship with them of this intermittent reinforcement where they've seen those glimpses of light in this person, that they're willing to go back to that pond and stick their foot back in.
I like the animal analogy a lot, because what's probably going on is many of the listeners and viewers have been hoping that this animal would be tamed, right? Made like a cuddly pet, and stop acting like a wild animal, where really what we need to do is just create a cage or some sort of an habitat around them where they can do what they do, and it doesn't hurt the outside world, it doesn't hurt you and your kids as much as possible. So we're not taming them, we're caging them.
Or just avoiding them.
Yeah, the avoidance is not bad. We left these people for a reason, right? And to some degree, the kids keep us in a business type relationship with them. But as you've shown, there's tools where we wouldn't really have to have any contact. You don't have to ever see them or ever hear their voice or read anything they've written. You can have someone reading it for you. You can have someone doing drop-offs and pickups, right? You don't need to be in relationship with the person that much or at all, you said.
Yeah. And we're back to commentary on basically the 3 rules again, aren't we? I mean, this is where we keep coming back to find the stability for everything that we talk about.
Yeah, that's good. All right, how do you want to wrap it up?
Well, I want to kick a couple other things here real quick, because I think there's a couple of other pieces to tie in here. One of the things that we want to do that keep us wrapped up in this is when these lies are thrown out or these outrageous statements are made, we get hooked into wanting to defend ourselves. That's another way that we keep stuck. This is a natural piece, and it's like we want to be seen again as doing it right. We want to defend ourselves in that arena, and that's one of the things that gets us stuck in. And we want other people, this is a deep desire of wanting other people to see that this other person is crazy. Mm-hmm. And we start to engage in conversation to start to reinforce this idea that they're crazy. It's not me, it's them. And that keeps us stuck in the cycle. And it makes us look crazy when we're doing that, because we've got this righteous indignation that we're setting forward that is putting more attention on us because of our need to do that. And then there's this other piece that happens in that exact cycle, and it's the hook of telling and retelling our story. Mm-hmm. That gets a reinforcement in our nervous system that keeps us up in that fight-flight mechanism all of the time, and people get hooked into all of the physiological components that come with that. and it reinforces it time over time, and it reinforces the trauma in our system.
Yeah.
And our system's always trying to deal with that trauma, and it hooks us back in. So this becomes that unconscious cycle that keeps this major cycle in motion all of the time. It's a virtual reliving of everything that's happened to us.
Right. And, I've been doing some research on that kind of thing. Like, all pain is in the past. The only way you can really continue to hurt yourself with it is through your thoughts and kind of telling yourself the story over and over and over again. Right.
Right.
And I've heard people, working with therapists talking about, living through the war, in Germany and being bombed, and people on both sides, one that hated Jews and one that hated Germans, and, counseling each other, and them realizing, like, yeah, all this stuff that was done there was bad, but it only lasted this many years, and we've been reliving it, making ourselves relive it for 40 years. So who's the worst terrorist?
Right.
Me. I'm doing that to myself. Thinking is where to start. Thinking about things differently, and that's why these materials and these podcasts and your classes and books and stuff are so important, because they're different. It's a different way of thinking about all this than I've seen anywhere else.
And again, the way to break the cycle, and you just said it a few minutes ago as we can start to wrap this up, is coming back to the 3 rules. Slowing everything down. Just kind of going, I'm really activated here. Just slowing it down and sitting down and being with it, and then learning how to tolerate it so we don't engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
And having the team around us, our life team. It's not just a divorce coach. It's somebody that we've got that's there all of the time. I've got people around me that, some I pay for and some are just my friends. And we come into conversation and bat this stuff back and forth to help keep us in motion in the ways that we want to go. You and I do some of this, Charlie, right?
Totally. I'm one of those friends that you get to talk to like that, and that you're one of the ones in my life particularly. But I also find it very interesting that you have people in your life that you pay for, because people don't hire coaches or therapists or anything like that because there's something wrong with them and they're sick. It's because they want to be the best version of themselves they can and avoid as much pain as possible. And you don't outgrow that, right?
No, we've always got some place that we can delve into to find something about us that we want to correct or do better. And, when we talk about, the shadow stuff that we do, that's our unconscious or our subconscious. And if we bring that to light, then we get to make choices. We get to do things better. And that's what coaches and therapists and our friends are for.
And it's amazing to have a coach like you that knows so much. But one of the amazing gifts of the world is just objectivity. The fact that there's more than one of us here, right? And I can't see a spider on my back and you can. So it has nothing to do with smart or smarter or sick or not sick. It has to do with not objective. Like, I'm subjective and emotional about everything in my life and blind to so much of it.
Right.
And then someone like you, in a group or whatever, I share it, and the whole group might see it like, just, oh, here's what it is, right? Or have you thought of this? I go, no, I've never in my life had ever heard anyone say, you don't have to read your own texts, your own emails from your ex. And it's so obvious once you hear it. It's like, these things trigger me, right? Well, don't read them. If you're an alcoholic, don't walk into bars. You know what I mean? Like, don't put the alcohol in your home. It makes it less tempting, perhaps, right?
Right. Harder to get to.
Having somebody who's not caught up in the emotions but understands it, look at your situation. Sometimes they can see it right away, or just give amazing tips.
So I think that kind of hits all of the flybys I wanted to do with this material today. Thanks again for showing up, helping facilitate this conversation.
Yeah, I learn every time, and it's a fun place to kick around ideas and things that you and I both learn in other places too from our other teachers, right? Awesome. All right, so don't get stuck in the cycle of hoping your ex is going to change or continuing to relive the trauma that you've experienced, or just kind of staying in that relationship. There's a way to break free. And as with everything that you're teaching, Brooke, it's really working on yourself, the way that you think and the way that you act, and getting coaching or group support and starting to do things a little bit differently. And then over time, you can change quite a lot. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a lot can happen. And you've seen that. You've got plenty of stories, I'm sure, that you can share and sort of case study.
Every day.
Every day, right?
Every day.
Awesome. So this has been episode 27, Stuck in the Cycle. Why do I continue to think that he or she is going to change when they're probably not, or at least the change that they're showing you is temporary? It's part of the manipulation. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks for showing up, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely, I do. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Charlie.